Now that we know Inquisitor Grendyl is likely the great-grandfather of Emora Brahms, we once again have more questions than we've gotten answers from Darktide. I have a lot of questions for Grendyl. Questions like, what happened to your head? What's this about a sacrifice? And bitch, why is you a ship? I have a hell of a theory about what Grendyl's sacrifice was, so buckle up, buckaroos, and get your tinfoil hats on. It's time to get a little unhinged. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. The most intriguing thing about Grendyl is this enigmatic sacrifice of his that supposedly saved billions of lives. We'll get into what the sacrifice itself might be in a little bit, because I have a whopper of a theory, but it stands to reason that whatever it is, it's an action that ultimately led to Grendyl being in the current condition he's in, seemingly stuck on board the Mourningstar permanently, being a burden to his family and caretakers. No one who knows of his existence and interacts with him directly is pleased with Grendyl's insistence in clinging to life, or whatever state he's in that counts as life. Magos Brahms outright loathes him.
Why can't you just have the decency to die?
Emora Brahms quickly comes to understand why.
I hope you're satisfied.
And even Magos Biologis Kharib, who seems to act as Grendyl's caretaker and confidant, thinks he's worn out his welcome.
Embrace humility. Accept your fate.
I know I've made this joke about the Emperor before, but Grendyl really does seem to be the old ladyfish from that one SpongeBob episode.
You just can't wait for me to die, can you?
Which isn't all that surprising when it comes to the Brahms women, because they just want to zip around the galaxy as badass rogue traders and get paid, but instead they're constantly interrupted by Grendyl telling them they need to go to another planet to deal with some bullshit they don't care about because it's important for the continued survival and security of the Imperium as a whole, or whatever.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
The cause of their continued friction makes perfect sense to me. Well, it is a little weird that Magos calls herself Grendyl's victim, basically tells him he's a piece of shit, and makes it crystal clear multiple times that she's literally just waiting for the day that she can dance on his grave. All of that seems a little bit extreme for familial strife centered around differing work schedules, but familiarity does breed contempt, so who am I to judge? It's much more surprising to me how Kharib seems to not be fully on board with Grendyl's desired plans of action. When he tells Grendyl that maybe it is time to embrace humility and accept his fate, it definitely seems like he's at the very least telling Grendyl that whatever experiments Kharib is performing on his behalf, nothing is going the way that would be ideal for Grendyl's desired outcomes, and it's probably time to pack it in on hoping otherwise. And Kharib isn't just content to suggesting Grendyl consider if it's time for him to hang it up too. In Zola's memories, what seems like the first meeting between Kharib and the Warband is to get the Magos' guidance and recommendations for how to proceed on Atoma, and Kharib has zero chill for his ideas on how to proceed.
Warp corruption confirmed. Recommendation. Exterminatus.
At the point Kharib suggests this course of action, all the Warband knows for sure so far is there is an illness spreading through certain sectors of the Hive City that is indeed a warp-based malady. Don't get me wrong, that's an extreme danger and concern. The walking pox is no joke, as we've seen firsthand, but at this point there's been no involvement of traitor space marines, no mass demonic incursion. Hell, they probably don't even know about the full extent of admonitions involvement in what's going on in Tertium, and they definitely don't know yet that their goal seems to be to summon a greater demon. Exterminatus, which basically means destroying the planet by nuking it from orbit to solve the problem, really is a bit of an extreme suggestion at this stage of the war. From a cold and calculating perspective, it is a perfectly reasonable suggestion to kill off the entire population to prevent the spread of chaos, corruption, and having the situation get worse. Nurgle can't grow in strength from being fed by human suffering on Atoma if there are no more humans on Atoma to suffer. That's just simple balancing of the equation. But I suspect that Kharib isn't just suggesting Exterminatus because he's talking as a fully logical admech. You see, Kharib is probably responsible for Grendyl being trapped on the Mourningstar, and also probably knows exactly what happened to cause him to be in the state he's in. Kharib knows the truth about how dire the situation might be, and thinks the Inquisitors is making a mistake. So, what is Grendel's condition? He may be in a sarcophagus that is designed to keep him alive indefinitely, sort of like a dreadnought except for rich people instead of space marines. The interred gets mummified alive and stuffed into a big coffin that keeps them alive, but it's definitely not weaponized and probably can't even move much, if at all. It's a process called the Rite of Satesh, performed by the Adeptus Mechanicus, most often a Magos Biologis. Alternatively, Grendel could not have a physical body at all anymore, and his existence could be a lot more esoteric. Theories in this realm run a huge gamut. He could be a brain in a jar, a la the latest operation in Space Marine 2. His physical body could have melded into the ship, and his soul fused to the machine's spirit due to warp corruption or other magical means, similar to what happened to the commander of the World's Eater ship, the Conqueror, Lotera Saren. Or it could be that both Grendyl and Kharib did something really illegal, like super illegal, advanced heresy level shit that was done out of desperation to save those billions of lives. Let me just come out and say it, because this is gonna sound crazy, but there's some compelling clues that might be pointing us to this. I don't think this is the first time Grendyl has faced off this demon Admonition is trying to summon, but the last time he was unable to banish or defeat it through normal means, and instead imprisoned it in his own body as a demon host. He sacrificed his physical body to trap the demon, and the only reason why Grendyl is still alive is because Kharib turned him into a fully conscious AI using some of the Mourningstar systems. From the beginning of Darktide, since we first found out the name of the Inquisitor that we would be in the service of was named Grendyl, I thought that was a really weird choice of name. There's really only one other Grendyl most people have ever heard of, and it's the main antagonist of the ancient Germanic epic poem, Beowulf. Grendyl is the monster Beowulf slays. It's kind of an iconic name, to the point where I think it probably conjures the image of a monster and enemy for most people. So why pick that name? It could just be happenstance, or because Dan Abnett or whomever came up with it thought it sounded cool. And it is, fair enough, but it's so specific. It's been one of the things that people in the community point at when we've asked ourselves the question, can Grendyl be trusted since Darktide released? It very well may be that Grendyl, at least his physical body, is a monster. It's also worth noting that Mourningstar is a name often associated with Lucifer, who, depending on your translation and interpretations, is the head honcho of demons in Catholicism. So Grendyl's own name points to him being a monster physically, and the ship on which his consciousness seems to be contained is named for an archdemon recognized in real-world religions. And then, of course, one of Grendyl's main adversaries is Captain Wolfer, another parallel with Beowulf in naming conventions. But I can't hang this whole theory on the coincidence of names, and thankfully I don't have to. There are other pieces that point us in this direction. For one, a lot of Admonition's activities and goals seem to center around demon hosts, to the point where, in my opinion, it's a little surprising. I covered this in a previous video, but demon hosts aren't something you just throw together in a few minutes. It's often a painstaking ritual that requires a lot of energy and effort from multiple people, the knowledge of true names of demons and their historical actions, unholy books that prescribe the actions of the ritual, etc. They're most often created for a specific purpose, but with Admonition, they seem to be a dime a dozen and they just leave them lying around. But then we get to the Dark Communion and get a better understanding of why Admonition is so focused on demon summoning rituals.
Kill that target out! Stop,
When it comes to Chaos Cults in Warhammer 40k, it's common for them to have a patron demon, often a greater demon of their venerated god. For Nurgle, this is a demon known as a Great Unclean One. They worship this demon as an avatar of their god, and the cult's goals often center around trying to facilitate bringing that demon into physical reality. This is likely exactly what Admonition is doing in the ritual at the end of the Dark Communion, using Roden Karnak's body as a meat suit to summon their patron demon into it so it can walk around in the physical world. And this patron demon might be the entity that knows Grendyl by name. Remember the Vox 12 entity that killed the original Wormwood like, I don't know, 2 years ago now?
The sword
is mine now, and yours, Inquisitor Grendyl, is next.
I have said since that Vox came out that what we're hearing there has got to be some kind of entity that's a serious threat. An Inquisitor is an imposing presence. Mortal followers of Chaos will often tremble and hide from the gaze of an Inquisitor, not just to protect the secrecy of their activities, but in fear of the Inquisition. For this thing to have the balls to directly threaten Grendyl by name, it must be formidable, and it likely has a history with him to know him by name. A greater demon fits this perfectly. And what do we hear when that same entity approaches Wormwood and when it speaks? Chains, the thing we always see Darktide's demon hosts bound in. We hear what sounds like the scraping and clicking of long claws and the clattering of chains, both physical characteristics of demon hosts in this game. So here's my best theory as to what went down to get us where we are now in Darktide. Hundreds of years ago, Inquisitor Grendyl faced off against a threat that ultimately had a Great Unclean One behind its machinations. This threat likely threatened Atoma Prime directly and its billions of souls on the planet. Grendyl was unable to defeat or otherwise banish the demon to the warp, and instead of allowing himself to fold to hopelessness, which would further empower Nurgle, he instead looked to Chaos for the only tool he could find that would help him delay the problem: the unholy ritual of demon host binding. While this is not an unheard of action for Inquisitors to take, creating demon hosts in an effort to use Chaos as a tool to defeat Chaos, it is not looked upon favorably by the Inquisition itself. It's the kind of thing that could get you labeled Extremis Diabolus, one of, if not the most serious accusation that can be leveled at someone by the Inquisition. It's basically saying someone is completely corrupted by Chaos and extremely dangerous to the continuation of the Imperium. Creating a demon host is the kind of thing you'd want to keep on the down low, even if you do believe it to be an end that justifies the means. Typically, when you create a demon host, you'd use another human as the vessel, knowing that their soul will be consumed or expelled back into the warp in the process. The person being sacrificed as you know them will die, their consciousness lost. Grendyl, either not having anyone he could use or not wanting to thrust that fate onto someone else, instead offered up himself, resigning himself to death in service of the Emperor. But his trusted companion, Magos Biologis Kharib, saw another option. Since they were already using heresy to defeat heresy, what's another forbidden ritual added to the mix? Especially if it preserves the soul of Inquisitor Grendyl and allows him to continue living, in a sense, so he can live to see the day this foul demon will inevitably break free and finally defeat him once and for all. And so, Kharib committed the ultimate sin within the cult Mechanicus, turning Grendyl into some kind of digital consciousness, or as the cult Mechanicus calls it, abominable intelligence. Kharib probably didn't use the Proteus protocol because typically it's thought that by transferring a soul into AI through that forbidden ritual, the person's humanity is lost and they tend to go insane and become a psychotic monster. Instead, if I had to put money on an option that we know exists from 40k lore, my stab in the dark would be that it's something similar to Call Inferior. Belisarius Call is both an Archmagos Dominus and an incredibly controversial person within the Adeptus Mechanicus. He has been alive for more than 10,000 years, having participated in events that took place during the Horus Heresy, and even came face to face with the corrupted War Master himself at one point. Call is responsible for creating the Primaris Space Marines, preserving Rabute Guliman's life and reviving him, and is notorious for pushing the envelope of what is acceptable in the cult Mechanicus doctrines with his experiments. Probably his most reviled creation is that of Call Inferior. This is the name that Belisarius gave to an intricate machine that is supposedly only a system running on hexadecimal codes that activate certain pre-programmed responses that the real Call loaded into the machine, which he based on mathematical computations of likely scenarios. Which is a lot of words to say that Call insists that it's basically a far more complicated Teddy Ruxpin and not actually true AI. The machine known as Call Inferior itself itself is comprised of components such as the entire scope of knowledge and memories of the real Belisarius Call, gargantuan cogitators, Xenos technology, and a massive amount of severed heads kept alive in jars and connected to the larger machines. You might think that this would limit the conversational capability of such a machine, but apparently it not only speaks in the same voice as Belisarius Call himself, it is so fluid in its conversation that Rabute easily forgets he isn't directly speaking to the real Call. It's even replicated his dry sense of humor. And herein lies the problem. Rabute Guliman isn't convinced that the machine is just a simple machine reacting to codes meant to activate certain predetermined responses. He suspects that it might truly be AI, a fully self-aware, abominable intelligence. Call Inferior may even show signs of ambition, as it repeatedly requests that Guliman install the real Call as the Fabricator General of Mars, which is the head leader of all the Adeptus Mechanicus. But strangely, the real Belisarius Call retorts that he has no desire to hold that position whatsoever, and has no idea why Call Inferior would be so fixated on the notion. The machine itself is certainly heretical in nature, just whenever you consider the use of Xenos technology alone. But true AI is a completely forbidden technology, and creating one is amongst the greatest sins anyone in the Mechanicus can commit. This is because in M23, fully artificial intelligent constructs called the Men of Iron turned on humanity and waged a war that almost destroyed humanity, but were ultimately defeated. From then on, any fully digital consciousness that is self-aware has been completely forbidden, which is why the Mechanicus considers Call and others like him so dangerous. He's committed to pushing the boundaries of heresy in the name of discovery, and he has gained the support and following of like-minded individuals within the Mechanicus. So, what does this have to do with Grendyl? Well, there's actually a couple parallels between Call Inferior and what we know about our presumed Inquisitor Grendyl. Call Inferior is kept in a secret section of Rabute Guliman's ship, Macrag's Honor. Inquisitor Grendyl seems to be kept in a secret section of the Mourningstar where no one is meant to see. Even Rannick servo skulls snooping around the place as a major problem for Brahms that she'd kick him off the ship over. Call Inferior is accessible to only two people, Rabute Guliman himself and his master astropath Psyker. And even then, it has to be at the real Belisarius Call's specific invitation for Rabute to go interact with the machine. Emora Brahms was only ever made aware of Grendyl's existence specifically at Magos Biologis Kharib's invitation, and Magali Brahms was shown to need to request an audience with Grendyl through Kharib. There are also only two people on the Mourningstar besides Kharib who know of Grendyl's existence, and that's the current shipmaster and their second in command. Now, am I saying that I think that Grendyl is an exact, complete copy of something like Call Inferior? No. Honestly, I don't even know how certain I feel that I'm actually right on this one. I'll level with you guys, I'm majorly spitballing here, but if I'm even remotely correct about any part of this, I kind of want it recorded for posterity. And you guys are always telling me that you want to see the deep cut, totally unhinged theories I have, so here it is. Grendyl willingly turned himself into a daemonhost to imprison a Great Unclean One hundreds of years ago, and Magos Biologis Kharib, a follower of Belisarius Call that believes in his mission of pushing for new innovations and technologies, helped ensure Grendyl's survival by turning him into an AI using a combination of Call's breakthroughs and the systems available on the Mourningstar. That's why there's an entity threatening Grendyl by name that has the sound of chains. That's why all the secrecy, misdirection, and lies around Grendyl and what's really at stake on Atoma. What Grendyl did is considered heresy of the highest magnitude to the Inquisition, and Kharib committed the greatest sin a member of the Mechanicus can perform. If the Inquisition or members of the Adeptus Mechanicus were to find out, they'd hunt them down as heretics and call for their heads. Hell, that's probably why Grendyl hasn't met with Rannick and doesn't seem to care for him that much. Rannick wears an official uniform. He's probably actually from the Scala Progenia and was assigned to Grendyl by the Inquisition instead of a cast-off black sheep like Grendyl seems to collect for his trusted retinue. It's also probably why the Mourningstar itself is in jeopardy. A true AI would likely require an impossible amount of power endlessly. No wonder the ship's power systems are on the fritz and the ship itself is decaying. This could also possibly explain Hadron and her search for techno-archaeological discoveries Grendyl permits her license to do. Yeah, rediscovering true Mobian steel is fantastic. The lesser version is good enough to be part of the justification for why Atoma can't be destroyed by Exterminatus. That means the real stuff's gotta blow our tits off when it comes to quality of tanks and armaments, right? But also, it likely takes a gargantuan amount of power to run the Mobian steel facility in Gloriana. The giant room toward the start of the mission where we have to play whack-a-mole with the synchronisters and turn the power supply back on, that whole room is just the power supply for the train that we take to get to the next part of the mission. Kharib and Grendyl have an obvious need for a better power supply because it's Kharib's experiments that Grendyl is incredibly concerned about him achieving a breakthrough with that causes the huge draw on the Mourningstar's systems and is putting the ship in danger. Also worth noting, we haven't gone back to Clandestium Gloriana, but we have begun to retrofit the smelter complex of Metal Fab 36 to produce true Mobian steel. Why are we not using the facility built to do this specific job using what seems to be superheated plasma that 4 crackheads and 2 ratlings in a trench coat are able to operate? Interesting. It also explains why Kharib tells Grendyl that it might be time to embrace humility and accept his fate. Being turned into AI was likely meant to be a temporary fix, something to hold Grendyl over while Kharib worked on reversing the process and getting him into a new body. And this also explains why Kharib discards the fact that he would know damn well exactly how much Grendyl has poured into Atoma and its continued existence, but recommends Exterminatus anyways. He was there. He knows exactly what horror is waiting on Atoma for them. That's why he wants them to glass the planet and get the hell out. Billions of lives and all the Mobian steel in the entire domain isn't worth the risk. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Grendyl still has his body and is just in a sarcophagus. Maybe, just maybe, the mysterious Brahms isn't actually Grendyl at all. It's very possible I've missed the mark on every single point in this one. All I can tell you is that if I got even one part of the plot right in this crazy theory, you guys are never gonna be able to get me to shut up about it. Thank you guys all so much for watching and all of your amazing support. Special shout out to my top tier supporters, Leah S., Andrew Brown, Cabus, Cameron, Rich, William McQueen, Ben, Darkside, Commander Orf, Ginge Dread, Yellow 13, Ripped Limbo, Jason Clark, Satan Xarxes, The Blackstone Chapter Master, D-Bot, Razzle Dazzle, Southfang 78, Jay, Sly, Jack Haytree, Gabby, Sten Dorkin, Erica, Mr. Schrodinger, Hee, Bishop Tadius, Mateo, Mr. Strunk, CT5334, Evan Berger, Lormock, Yin, Bad Cat, Dark Slide, Bride's Biscuit, Kron Chaos, Daniel Gerber, The Thunder Guardian, Aubrey Bessie, Freedom Frank, Macrove, and Big Guy.